So you want to make sure that in any one serving of something that you're not getting, 3, 4, 500 milligrams of sodium. Something around 150 is not so bad. That's about your limit on a single serving of sodium. Then we get down into the carbohydrates. Does everybody know the difference between fats, carbohydrates, and proteins? Is all that pretty clear to you guys? So a fat, is fat like animal fat or an oil from a plant. Protein comes in the form of both animal flesh, the meats. It also comes in nuts and seeds. Soy is also a plant source of protein. And then carbohydrates are the digestible sugar forms that come from different types of plants. Typically the only place you can get a carbohydrate from an animal is in milk. Milk product, meaning milk, yogurt, cheese, those things will have the lactose, which is the milk sugar, is a carbohydrate. But other forms, no. Fish, chicken, beef, all of those things, they have fat and protein. They don't have carbohydrate. So in this total carbohydrate, we're looking for something that's relatively low because your body's going to take that, break it down, and turn it into sugar or blood sugar. So we want that to keep it relatively low, depending on what it is we're eating. Under 25 grams is a good place to kind of draw the line. You can go up and down with that number depending on how much fiber you're getting at the same time. So we can go up into the 30s on the carbohydrates if we're getting plenty of fiber at the same time. That would slow the release of that sugar into your bloodstream and kind of balance out that increase in carbohydrate sugar. And then finally there's your protein. So this is 2 crackers, we don't know what kind. It's got 2 grams of protein, it's pretty low sodium. It's really low in the carbohydrate range. It's got a tiny bit, not much fiber, but there's not much carbohydrate, so that's okay. 25 grams of carbohydrates a day? No, per serving. So like you look at one of your cereals, I don't think they left our cereal box in here, but we can look at one of these. So we've got these little Nabisco things here. So this is a serving size. The calories is 100, and it has cholesterol, sodium, total carbohydrates 18 grams. So they've kept the carbohydrates pretty low in this, and that's a single serving. So what you would like is in one single serving to keep those carbohydrates down below 25. This one's 19, and these folks are all paying attention to those kinds of deals. Look at the sugar in your cereals. Sometimes you'll get some of those cereals will have like 50 and 60 grams of carbohydrates in like a 3/4 cup serving. So you want to be careful with that. And then so what you see down here with this X over the less important, the daily values, is because as we work our way down the label, and we get to start eliminating something for these various reasons, this stuff doesn't matter as much. Because once I get to the bottom and I've decided that this is a good product, these numbers fall into line. You see, you're not going to find anything here that's bad because you've already gone through the list of other things, the other ingredients. On your on the color handout here, on this one, down at the bottom it says, remember 5% or less percent daily value is low, and 20% or more percent daily value is high. So you would compare similar products, but what you would do is you would more think about, wow, if this is 20% of my daily allowance for sodium, that's pretty high. But if it's 20% of my daily allowance for vitamin C, that's a good thing. So you see, it's subjective depending on the nutrient you're looking at. So that's your label lingo. On the back of this is an interesting little comparison of milks. Basically, it's all dairy products on the back. But this is what I was telling you about, this total carbohydrate and sugars on milks. That's all about, except with the exception of the chocolate milk, that's all about the lactose, the sugar that is in milk. And that would be one of the only animal products, the only situations where you would find carbohydrate in animal products. You can see on the fat-free milk, obviously there's no fat. And then you go all the way to the other end, and you're looking at 8 grams of fat in whole milk. 5 of it is saturated. And you're going to get a higher and higher level of cholesterol because it's an animal product and it's got a lot of fat. Sodium is relatively the same with the exception of the chocolate milk. Don't ask me why they put sodium in chocolate milk. I don't know. Maybe it just comes naturally in the cocoa. The total carbohydrates are relatively the same except with chocolate milk, and that's because they've added sugar. Look at the sugar content. All of those 12s you see across the board, that is the lactose sugar. But then with the chocolate milk, it jumps up to 27. That's because they added sugar in there. They all have the same amount of protein. The only reason that any of us as adults would drink milk is for protein and one other thing. What is it? Why would we drink milk? Protein and calcium. We don't need any of the fat that comes with milk. And then with your cheeses, cheeses inherently have salt. But you can check, like here they have American cheese here, which is that kind of stuff you melt. You know, it comes in a little plastic package thing. It's got 250 milligrams of sodium. Doesn't have much carbohydrate because it's an animal product. It's got a good amount of protein for one slice. But then if you come over here to cottage cheese, the one that we all think is like the dietary healthy style, look at the sodium in half a cup of cottage cheese. So that's a pretty significant amount of sodium in just half a cup. And how many of us typically eat only half a cup? Probably we're eating more like closer to a cup. So you're going to bump that up to 800 milligrams in just one single item on your list of foods for the day. So good. This is your introduction to label lingo. Laura has some really cool handouts to give you where you're going to compare 2 labels and choose the healthier of the 2. And you don't know exactly what they are just yet, but you will. When you're finished, we'll go over them and we'll check out what's what. Are we done? We done? Let's do it. All right, let's talk about it. The very first one, we've got a serving size is 1 tortilla, and then a serving size on the second one is 2 tortillas. So it's obvious that these are tortillas. Let's see if we can figure out which is which. The calories, significantly different, especially since 150 for 1 tortilla and 110 for 2. Then we've got this total fat, and not only is it higher, but it's also saturated. So cholesterol, 0. So what do we know about that saturated fat? If there's no cholesterol in it, it must be coming from probably palm oil, something like that. 440 milligrams of sodium in the 1 tortilla and only 10 in the 2. The carbohydrates are very similar, but the fiber is a little bit different. The sugars are very similar, and the protein is somewhat different. So if you were going to choose, which one would you choose, A or B? Why would we choose B? Because of which component? Which one? Two tortillas have less calories, way less sodium, and it's got more fiber. So what do you think is the difference between these 2 tortillas? Which is which? A is the flour tortilla, and B are in this case it's white corn, but it wouldn't matter if it was white, blue, yellow, any of those. So good. Yeah, that was good. That was good. Let's try the second one. We've got a cup on the first one as a serving size, and then 2/3 of a cup on the second one. Significant difference in calories. The fat, we've got some fat in this one with 2/3 of a cup, but it's not saturated. There's no cholesterol in either, a little bit more sodium in the second one. Then we look at this total carbohydrate. 45 grams in the first one. That's pretty high when we're looking at a 25-gram value. The other one is 34, but it's got fiber. So as long as we've got some fiber, we can slow down that absorption of the total carbohydrate. They have similar amounts of protein. Which one would you choose? Would we go with B? Why would we do that? Less carbohydrates and more fiber. Perfect. Got any idea what these two things might be? A guess? So the first one is white rice. The second one is brown rice. Whole grain brown rice. Interesting how there's not that much of a difference in terms of the much smaller portion size on the brown rice. 1/3 of a cup smaller. So let's go to the second page. We've got 1 cup servings on both of these. A significant amount of difference in the calories. Significant amount of difference in the fat. In cholesterol. Now we got some cholesterol here, so what does that tell us? Where does cholesterol come from? Animals. So we know that this is a cup of something from an animal. Significant difference in sodium. The carbohydrates are basically the same. The protein's the same. Which one would we choose? We choose A. Yeah, that's pretty straightforward. And so those two things, we've got A is skim milk and B is whole milk. And then the last one, the difference in calories, not so significant. The fat's not that different. Cholesterol, there's no animal product. Sodium, not so different. The carbohydrates, tampoco, not real different. We've got a gram of fiber difference. The sugar is pretty different. The protein is not so much. The main thing is the calories, and I guess probably the fiber in its relationship to the carbohydrate. So which one would we choose? Yep, we would choose B. And B is whole wheat bread versus white bread. I was telling Laura that I was like, why aren't these two things more different? I've seen whole grain breads that are far more different than white bread, especially in the fiber content. It'll be anywhere between 4 and sometimes, 3 to 4 grams of fiber. But she said this is Mrs. Baird's, so I don't know what Mrs. Baird's doing with the fiber, but who knows? So yeah, the whole grain bread would be the better choice in that because of the relationship between the fiber and the carbohydrate. So good, you guys did great. That was it. That was painless, I hope, relatively painless. Relatively.
Good job.
And I think next time, what is our topic next time? I think it is eating out, yeah, and how to make choices while you're eating out. So, sure. If you want to bring a meal. Well, I'll try to get some information about I think that we've got some stuff about local restaurants and how to make healthy choices in some of those. But we'll talk more in general about how to look at a restaurant's menu and find the key words that'll clue you in to what's more or less healthy. Good. Thank you much.